In recent years, the landscape of media has undergone a seismic shift in its portrayal of what was once considered a contentious and taboo topic: prostitution. Advocacy for the recognition of prostitution as sex work has gained momentum, heralding a new era where the occupation is depicted as a choice imbued with empowerment and agency. While this shift in representation has sought to destigmatize the industry, what it has actually done is contributed to a surge in young girls entering the realm of online prostitution, seduced by the veneer of financial liberation and empowerment. Those who critique this trend are often painted as being Puritans, regressive, and anti-female empowerment, while those who support it, knowingly or not, are only supporting the status quo and the commodification of women.
Being a swerf because the company Cornhub is unethical makes no sense. That's like saying I'm never going out to eat again because McDonald's is an unethical company. What you can do is choose not to support unethical companies. Join with SWs who are actively organizing in California for decriminalization policies that make it safer for everyone. There's ethically made corn. There's independent creators. There's audio corn, which is the most anonymous way, and some would say one of the safest. The point is, this is a service that's existed from the beginning of time. The main reason it's been denigrated by society and unregulated is because of its association with women workers. And guess what? As long as we live under a capitalist heteropatriarchy, women workers are always going to struggle. And that's why workers' rights are really important. And it was actually because of the labor movement that all of these laws were created in the first place to protect women at work and LGBTQ people at work, protect anybody from being harassed. That's all the result of workers organizing. And workers are organizing right now for legislation. They're organizing to form unions and clubs. You're not helping by speaking over people.
Onlyfans represents the mass commercialization and digitalization of pimps, but the idea of prostitution being necessary stems from as far back as antiquity. The phrase, "the world's oldest profession," may come to mind, first coined by Rudyard Kipling, whose 1888 story about a prostitute begins, "Lalan is a member of the most ancient profession in the world." What many people seem not to realize is that Kipling also coined the phrase "white man's burden," which should illustrate the biases of a man who believed colonialism was good and beneficial to the colonized. In truth, those who presented the idea of prostitution as being a form of work and of a need for respectability and reform instead of abolition have vested interest in maintaining prostitution, in the same way that the porn industry is often represented not by the actors who were abused within it, but by the men who profit off of it.
I don't condone the rhetoric of women entering the sex work industry. I don't think that should be encouraged or promoted or glamorized or anything that makes it seem anything other than what it is, which is signing your life away. Your digital footprint is so important. I think that sites like OnlyFans are incredible outlets for women who have already entered the sex work industry and want to do it in a safer way and in a more ethical way. But I would never recommend a woman to enter the industry by going to one site over another, because I would never recommend for her to do it, full stop.
As noted on NordicModelNow.com, the term sex work was coined by a spokesperson of Coyote, Call Off Your Old Tired Ethics, which was founded in the United States in 1973 by a liberal faction of the hippie movement, who believed that prostitution is an expression of sexual freedom. After 8 years, it had about 30,000 members, including sex liberals, beatniks, and known pimps. In spite of the fact that only about 3% of its members were prostituted women, Coyote has repeatedly been labeled a union of hookers or whores. It was Coyote spokesperson Priscilla Alexander who, perhaps more than anyone, brought the term sex worker into mainstream use. She realized that to normalize prostitution, they needed to shift the language from the word prostitution, which is ugly and does in fact conjure up something of its reality, to a euphemism that obscures that reality and conjures up something wholesome and healthy.
So how much are you railing in on OnlyFans?
Drop it.
Drop
Come
it.
on
Come
now.
on, drop it.
So I started May 2021.
Did you do like a hard launch?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep. Until like October, this past October, I would make like 100 to 150K a month. And then I made it a TikTok. So, you guys know Anna Paul, obviously.
Yes.
So she made this TikTok of her like filming a day in her life as an OnlyFans creator. And she started it off with like, so I'm a sex worker. And I was like, wow, that's like great. And, like probably like, it had so many views. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. So I made like a vlog, like, and I started it off with that. And I vlogged like me getting ready for my OnlyFans shoot. And it did so fucking well, like in October, this past October. So now it's like 350 a month. It's insane.
Are you
crazy.
serious? What do you
crazy.
well, I guess you go to Harry Styles concerts. What else
Yeah.
do you do with all this fucking money?
I just travel.
Cruises?
Yeah, I just
Cruises are cheap, bro.
Cruises are mad cheap.
Yeah.
The truth of prostitution is far worse than the euphemism implies. Let's not forget. A 2003 study first published in the Scientific Journal of Trauma Practice found that 89% of women in prostitution want to escape. Field research in 9 countries concluded that 60 to 75% of women in prostitution were raped, 70 to 95% were physically assaulted, and 68% met the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder in the same range as treatment-seeking combat veterans and victims of state-organized torture. Beyond this shocking abuse, the public health implications of prostitution are devastating and include a myriad of serious and fatal diseases, including HIV/AIDS. To fight human trafficking and promote equality for women, Sweden has aggressively prosecuted customers, pimps, and brothel owners since 1999. As a result, 2 years after the new policy, there was a 50% decrease in women prostituting and a 75% decrease in men buying sex. Trafficking for the purposes of sexual exploitation decreased as well. In contrast, where prostitution has been legalized or tolerated, there is an increase in the demand for sex slaves, and the number of victimized foreign women, many likely victims of human trafficking, increases. This industry thrives on child sex abuse victims, as a study of 200 juvenile and adult street prostitutes documented extremely high levels of child abuse in their background. 60% of the subjects were sexually exploited by an average of 2 people each over an average period of 20 months. 2/3 were sexually abused by father figures.
Wherever prostitution is fully decriminalized or legitimized, there's an increase in sex trafficking, as demonstrated by an academic study of 150 countries led by the London School of Economics. Why? For several logical reasons. 1. Once you normalize the sex trade, it explodes because of increased demand for paid sex. We see this in Germany, where prostitution and brothels have been legal since 2002. An estimated 1 million men buy sex each day, coming from all over the world. The capital city, Berlin, alone has over 500 brothels. 2. Men who don't buy sex when it's illegal become new clients. As a 2018 study of 8,000 US men demonstrates, over 20% of respondents who never bought sex would consider buying sex if circumstances were more favorable. In Germany, we saw a 30% increase in the market following legalization. 3. To satisfy demand, the sex trade has to lure in vulnerable people because there are never enough willing participants to meet this steady stream of buyers. For example, sex trafficking cases increased 70% in Germany as a result of legalization. In the Netherlands, where prostitution was legalized in 2000, an estimated 50 to 90% of women are selling their bodies against their will. 4. Normalization of the sex trade leads to increases in gender-based violence. This happened in Nevada. It consistently ranks first in the nation for domestic violence fatalities, third in the nation for rape or sexual assault, and fourth in the nation for women murdered by men. According to the CDC, the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey indicates that almost half of the women, 48.1%, living in Nevada have experienced rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. In addition, Rhode Island, the only US state to experiment with full decriminalization, ended that practice after 29 years in 2009 because of increased violence, organized crime, trafficking, and child exploitation they experienced during that period. 5. The sex trade is inherently dangerous and harmful. The progressive approach is to reduce the number of people involved and shrink the market. Full decrim does the opposite, it expands the market. The following studies demonstrate the sex trade's harm. A 2018 study of prostituted women and trans women in the US found 61% suffered traumatic brain injuries whilst in the sex trade. In a 9-country study of 785 prostituted women, 68% suffered PTSD at the same severity as combat veterans and victims of state torture. The mortality rate of women in prostitution is 200 times the rate of the general population, according to a Colorado medical study examining 2 decades of evidence. 92.2% of women in the sex trade report being subjected to physical violence such as being raped, shot, strangled, burned, beaten, stabbed, or punched. So you see, prostitution and sex trafficking are inextricably linked. The sex trade cannot be made less harmful. These effects cannot be regulated or deregulated away.
Online sex services are somewhat safer in that there is a reduced physical contact, but that is not always the case, nor does this address the mental and emotional implications of doing so. It is difficult to leave the industry once there. One woman worked in the porn industry for 4 years, claiming that, although she enjoyed her 4-year stint in front of the camera, she wanted to take time off to prove to herself that she could succeed in other avenues, and went to school to become a surgical tech, where an anesthesia tech recognized her, and word spread through the hospital staff that a porn star was among their ranks. Everybody wanted me in their room, but they started treating me like shit, Gage says. They made me feel like I was contaminating everything. By the time she was set to graduate, no one at the hospital would sign off on her required hours. She in fact tried several careers, including beauty school and criminal justice school, but was continually recognized and discriminated against. After 8 years of attempting to try a different career path, she returned to acting in porn. In one interview after her announced return, she noted, "I ended up getting just so fed up with the way I was being treated," she told a week after she announced her comeback. "I have a family now, and if I've exhausted all my avenues and the only thing left is the adult industry, then I'm just like, well, look, I've tried this and I've tried that year after year after year. It's 2013. I've been going to school since 2007. What else am I supposed to do?" If sex work were like any other form of work, wouldn't Gage be able to change careers? Why would she be discriminated against for her past employment if it were truly no different than any other job? The discrimination can't even be fought in court, as one woman who was fired after one of her middle school students found one of her previous videos found the court ruled that the ongoing availability of her pornographic materials on the internet will continue to impede her from becoming an effective teacher and a respected colleague, and denied her appeal. This is a common trend which is often not spoken of when glamorizing the concept of sex work. The internet makes it impossible to keep this past experience a secret, more so than stripping, sugaring, or other in-person activities which may have more anonymity, but also place part of the burden of recognition on the buyer. Some are shameless and truly don't care, but at least in the United States, the idea of having to buy sex is still seen in a generally negative light, and many people prefer to keep it more discreet. Pornography, in many ways, is worse, as in all of these examples, the person who found the pornography is never facing the same scrutiny as the person who was found to be performing in it. As adult entertainment lawyer Michael Fitzgerald notes, there are no protections for former sex workers, and firing someone for their porn past is not like saying we're letting you go because you're black or Jewish or you wear a turban. Those things are not a result of a life choice you make, and being a sex worker is. There is a distinct double standard which punishes the producers of pornography, the actors of sex work, and never the consumers.
Got 1,823 men inside that chat exposing women. Hold on. This Philly chat, 1,069 men in that chat. I'm not even trying to get banned, so I had to screenshot these joints. And Detroit, 575 guys inside this chat exposing women. So what I'm explaining to y'all is that if y'all meet a man and y'all got pictures on Instagram, if y'all met him off of Facebook, why is he still asking for more pictures, right? The man can see you in person after he planned the date. The man already knows what you look like from shooting his shot on social media, on Instagram or wherever, especially if he already met you in person. But the reason I'm telling y'all this is because these men is downright exposing y'all. And like I said, they're not waiting to see you naked. They're just exposing you.
This is rarely, if ever, expressed to those being told that this is an easier path than the 9-to-5 grind. This is in fact a mirror path of escape against the trad wife path, where it's modesty versus hypersexuality. And as Andrea Dworkin wrote in Right Wing Women, to right-wing men, we are private property. To left-wing men, we are public property. The presentation of sex work, of prostitution, both digital and in person, as being easier work is insidious, especially as markets like OnlyFans target young girls in particular.
A lot of these guys who are like off and stuff like that, they probably don't realize that the girl behind the camera sometimes doesn't want to be doing what she's doing, but because she got into OnlyFans, was pressured into doing it, said it would make her a lot of money, and she has her boundaries. She's like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, but sooner or later she's doing it because her daddy living in Miami, who runs her OnlyFans account, said you're gonna make $100,000 if you just do this one thing, and it's something that she said, oh, I'm not gonna do that, and then she makes the video, and the guy that's jacking off has no idea that she's probably being forced into doing it.
While top OnlyFans performers can rake in between $5,000 and $100,000 per month, the average earnings on OnlyFans is only about $180 per month. The oversaturation in the market has only devalued the perceived cost of access to women. The platform's perceived respectability also serves to normalize online pimping and to further separate the woman from the product. In the e-pimps of OnlyFans, one marketer has this down to a process. When he starts managing a new client, he asks for a bank of nude photos and videos. Rosero's ghostwriters, known in the industry as chatters, will act as the model in private messages with the customers who pay to talk to her. These chatters work in shifts, responding to incoming messages and reaching out to new subscribers, trying to coax them into buying expensive pay-per-view videos. They tell particular subscribers that a video was recorded just for them. In fact, the same clip might be sold to dozens of people. The chatters earn a small percentage on most sales, and the rest is split between the agency and the model. The subscribers presumably think they're talking directly to the woman in the videos, and it is the job of the chatter to convincingly manifest that illusion. Their clientele, typically horny, lonely men, make it pretty easy. Our best customers come to us not so much to buy content as they come to us to just feel a connection, reads a post on Think Expansion's website. This desire, the post explains, is a pimp's bread and butter, or otherwise. Hustling simps has been an art since the beginning of time. The chatters, of course, come from the global south and Eastern Europe, where labor is cheap and easy to find. Make no mistake, they are the same as pimps in real life, as in these situations, just a fraction of the sum paid to a model will actually end up in her bank account. A small cut goes to the chatter whose labor manifests her online existence, a larger one enriches the schemers who made the connection, and the app in which it all takes place connects its own 20% fee. The focus of these schemes, lonely, horny men, are portrayed as the victims, the men who pay for these videos and pictures. Men who are perfectly aware of the transactional nature of this relationship and are perfectly content to take part in coerced sexual activity. But because they are sad that they cannot buy genuine affection, they feel taken advantage of. What is interesting is how this issue of sexually frustrated men, of their loneliness, is taken as far more of an issue than the emotional distress of women. Prostituted women are not a buffer for the rest of us. We do not need to sacrifice them to keep the wolves at bay. Men are not animals incapable of keeping their hands and dicks to themselves, and I find it especially insidious that this rhetoric arises during a time of pushback against the latest waves of feminism, finding a place amongst men's rights activists, trad wives, and fundamentalists, and a liberalism that views women as a state of mind instead of a material reality.
I saw a video on here. It was from a podcast, like a young girl podcast. I don't know which one, where they were interviewing this like OnlyFans star. And I don't know who it was. She has like millions of fans or followers or whatever you call it. And they were asking her like, how much money do you make if you don't mind telling us? And she said something like $100,000 a month. Like she's making a ton of money. And the two girls doing the interview were like, wow, amazing. Like that's so inspiring. And this video had like 300,000 likes, the video that I saw. And somehow where we're at, like in our society, I talk about stay-at-home moms, and there's a lot of, people are really worried about young stay-at-home moms staying home, taking care of their families and like foregoing a career or an education. They're basically going to be like bumps on logs or something. But then we seem to be totally okay with this concept that a young girl, she was probably like 22, is sending sexual photos of herself to strangers, probably deranged strangers around the world, all day, every day. Like, that's inspiring, but somebody staying home to take care of their family is like dangerous, reckless, and she'll probably get early dementia, like someone told me the other day. And we wonder why it's like hard to find a good man or have a good relationship because of these things like OnlyFans, things of like weird accounts on Instagram where it's just like sexual pictures or bikini pictures, pornography industry. Like, these things are destroying the ability for people to have normal human connection, successful relationships. Really, this should not be inspiring. This is the last thing that I would call inspiring. So I make the stay-at-home mom OnlyFans comparison because I just want to point out that, like, we need to have some screws loose.
It makes it even more difficult for women to put words to the pressures and expectations placed upon them to conform to one or the other role. Meanwhile, the focus remains on men being affected and ignores the harm done to women and girls. The women who object to this are branded SWERFs, or sex work exclusionary radical feminists. This is a new term, but not a new sentiment. Gail Dines and Julia Long wrote about this phenomenon wherein feminists who organize against pornification are not arguing that sexualized images of women cause moral decay. Rather, that they perpetuate myths of women's unconditional sexual availability and object status, and thus undermine women's rights to sexual autonomy, physical safety, and economic and social equality. The harm done to women is not a moral harm but a political one, and any analysis must be grounded in a critique of the corporate control of our visual landscape. Liberal arts schools are even teaching that sex work is an option for making ends meet, with the University of Leicester publishing a student sex work toolkit. Liberal talking points present sex work as being empowering and a method of reclaiming one's sexuality. This targets the older, college-age demographic. However, because of the use of the internet as both a way to advertise and sell product, children are also exposed to this propaganda, namely that prostitution, porn, and sex work are legitimate career avenues with no negative repercussions. One of the lies used to further aid recruitment is the concept of OnlyFans allowing creators to have better control over their agency, sexuality, and safety. The Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative found strong indicators of child sexual abuse material and sex trafficking on OnlyFans. The data for this report was collected from November 2021 to March 2022, a date range that occurred entirely after MasterCard's policy changes came into effect, regarding a requirement to verify the age of performers. ATII stated that within 1.5 hours, the researchers found a high volume of OnlyFans.com profiles possessing commonly understood indicators of child sex abuse and/or sex trafficking. Examples of what they found include pictures of girls whose appearance and body type suggest they are underage, accounts advertising of terms and descriptions that commonly denote CSAM, conversations between potential sex traffickers discussing how they like to use OnlyFans to monetize their victims, and creators sporting signs of abuse and coercion, such as bruising, tattoos known to be used for sex trafficking, expressions of pain, blank gazes, and signs of being under the influence, and much more. The paywall, said to provide such economic benefit to the individual, makes it more difficult for law enforcement to access material and to act upon it. While it is relatively easy to identify significant red flags indicating the likelihood of criminal activity occurring on OnlyFans.com through open-source investigations, the paywall enables traffickers, rapists, and other criminal elements to better evade detection. It is extremely time-consuming and expensive for law enforcement to investigate suspected criminal activity, as they must repeatedly submit requests for funding and wait for those requests to be approved each time they wish to seek information behind an account's paywall. For this information, although evidence suggests that criminal activity is rampant on OnlyFans, the crimes are left largely unaddressed. Paired with the lack of actual money OnlyFans brings, as well as how it hinders efforts to leave the industry, there is little actual benefit to anyone using the platform. Social media further serves as access to profiles of influencers who promote and glorify OnlyFans, creating a recruiting pipeline.
How many subscribers to OnlyFans do you have now?
In the thousands. I could have a lot more if I open like a free page, but everyone pays like $25 a month to be on there.
You make 6 figures a month on OnlyFans, don't you?
That would be selling.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So a bad baby shows proof that she actually accumulated $52 million from her OnlyFans account within a year. Like, all these people waited for you to turn 18, like, now you a millionaire, catch me outside. But she did state that she's tired of being known as the catch me outside girl and would be preferred to be known as something else. She might as well call her the OnlyFans girl, like, what the...
Researchers at NCOSE created fake Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok accounts posing as minors, and were served this type of content even without looking for or searching anything related. In many cases, one only needed to click once or twice to reach the OnlyFans site. Instagram has given OnlyFans the coveted blue check of a verified account, an account available to minors where they can easily see advertisements for sexually explicit content. OnlyFans mimics a pyramid scheme structure where creators are incentivized to recruit other creators, since they then profit up to 5% of the new creator's earnings. This means that OnlyFans creators have a vested interest in making the life seem more glamorous than it is, and to flood social media with these messages. Make no mistake, sex work is a lie.
This makes me so sad and so angry at OnlyFans. OnlyFans is so gross because it literally weaseled its way into these feminist spaces and convinced women that it is somehow empowering for them to sell their body online with false promises they're gonna make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's not the reality of it. It's basically a sex work pyramid scheme. In what other business, when the market is so flooded, would you continue to try to recruit young women? And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with sex work, but it is not supposed to be this common, especially not amongst young women. And I hate to say this, but this is the opposite of feminism. This is quite literally the objectification of women. You can have us at a price. What? And I don't know why I feel like I'm so early on this train, but I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Which is, again, why I'm so proud of this girl for posting about it.
Prostitution and porn are the reality. Suffering, abuse, and pain are the result. I am not surprised. No one should be. It has long been established that porn rots the brain, and we live in a culture that has been thoroughly defined by pornography. What does surprise me is the presentation of these elements as being positive and empowering, as being feminist in any way. Empowerment would refer to the bestowal of political or monetary power, neither of which the industry provides to women. Who benefits from these lies? As Maya Schlalin wrote in Who's Porn, Who's Feminism, countless studies have since shown that exposure to pornography desensitizes men to violence against women, often shaping their sexuality in such a way that they become unable to experience arousal without some element of dominance or violence. The evidence has been so damning that, at times, universities have refused to allow further research on the topic. When a study shows detrimental effects that cannot be reversed, ethics boards will often refuse similar studies to go on. This has happened repeatedly with research on the effects of pornography. So the answer is men who have been raised on a steady diet of porn and female degradation. Or, even more simply, never the women involved. This, dear viewers, is where we part. It's been a minute since I've been trying to work on a script for OnlyFans, and I finally had the time to sit down and do the writing and the research, and there's a lot of background information that had to go into this. But what I was really looking at was how so many young people here in Cambodia, this is where I'm recording the vocals. I live on basically the red light district. I live above a lady bar, which is basically a brothel. I've had conversations and experiences with plenty of the women who work in this field, and I've seen girls who look at 14 at the most, working behind bar counters. And I've heard the men who are visiting these bars, men who you would otherwise think are perfectly fine, perfectly rational men, people who critique Trump and who are anti-Republican and who loudly say that gender doesn't matter, they're still buying 2 women to bring up to the room at a time, women who have to be on meth to lie with them because these women are in their early 20s, if that, and these men are in their 70s, and it's not glamorous. The women may look glamorous, they may look pretty. Most of their clothes they have to rent because they can't even afford to buy the glamorous outfits in some of the higher-end bars. But this is not a glamorous thing, and I hate seeing it glamorized, especially in the West. I understand that things are different here, and I understand that I have observed, but I am in no way a spokesperson for the women here. But I feel offended on their behalf that people are presenting this lifestyle as anything but what it is. It's not a choice for most women. And for those who do end up getting into, who do choose, oh, I'm going to do porn because I think this will be a way to get some quick cash, or I don't mind doing this for a career, it seems easy. They're often not told or don't understand the repercussions of what they're doing. They don't understand how difficult it'll be to leave, to get into a new field, how it follows you in ways that people really couldn't conceive of until recently because of how the internet has changed over the past few years. It's a very depressing topic, and I hope that this video is at least something to get you thinking on the topic if you haven't already. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.